Okay, let's get this conversation going. I can see on screen right now, Mr. Nambiar, Vishnu Nambiar is already ready. Just to double check, Vishnu, your microphone is on, yes?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, it is. Fantastic. Perfect. Vishnu, thank you so much for saying yes to be with us on the Reboot Now 2022 stage. We are super happy to talk. Cars, my favorite topic, by far. By far. You can ask me to talk about clothes, business, anything. Cars, right up there on the list. I was named after a car. I repeat the story all the time. I was named after a Ferrari Dino, so I think, when you say cars to me, that's it. I get triggered. I'm super happy to talk about this, and I can see in your face, I think it's the same for you too?
Yes. No, I was just looking you up as a host, so I saw your one of your taglines indicating your name after a car, and I kind of related, right? Ferrari, yes, cars is a topic close to the heart as well. I enjoy cars, not probably to a hardcore car enthusiast like you, but I do enjoy cars. Yes, looking forward to the conversation.
Well, the difference, Vishnu, is that you're in the car industry and I'm not. I'm in the media industry. But let's find a way to find the synergy so that we can have fun talking about this. And we are here to talk about, the topic that we have ready for you is how digitalization disrupted the way we buy and sell cars. And as the Chief Technology Officer of Carsome, Carsome, and you guys literally are the disruptors in the way we look at the purchasing and selling of cars, and it has restructured the way the used car market works in many ways here. You've taken away a lot of the elements that we do not like, such as trust issues and all that, and you've given in or added in a lot of benefits, such as making the whole process super easy. So that is the perspective that I have. But perhaps we can take a step back and just go with a very simple why. Why did Carsome see the need to change the way we were buying and selling, especially used cars, like what we used to do, say maybe 15, or well, I wouldn't say 15, as recent as just 10 years ago, from your perspective, Vishnu?
Sure. So, Carsome started off with, understanding what are the key pain points, right? Like being in a the understanding the pain points, essentially a fragmented market, and no single systemized platform, right? Like I think the automotive, especially in the used car sector, it actually had a very bad reputation, and I think trust was the issue. And I think it also was fueled by, without transparency, right? I think that was the main concern. And not forgetting the fact, I think you related back to it, is it's tough to buy and sell cars, right? I think that was the main pain points. So it started off by, Eric, JT, our co-founders, initially started, and the journey was a bit different, right? Creating a car comparison website. And then they understood there was actually a demand in terms of people wanting to sell cars. So that's how the business kind of transformed into having an inspection, and then followed by on-the-spot offer, or followed by, you could actually bid your cars in the network of dealers. And then it made it a lot more simpler by saying, you sell within 24 hours and you could get paid as quick as even 1 hour. Right, and then removing the whole aspects of the papers, right, and you know how much you kind of need to deal with when you're transferring vehicle ownerships and banks and whatnot. Then in 2020, we also started Carsome Certified, which was the selling side of the business. So a large selection of cars, and then followed by the Carsome Promise, right? So when I keep repeating this Carsome Promise, because it's we see the vehicle at the end of the day on the website, but it goes through a strict 175 inspection points. We also add in a 1-year warranty, 5 days money back guarantee, right? And then also fixed price, clear upfront, what you're getting, no hidden fees, right? And then you get the whole information available online. You get to see the car's 360, the internal, external views, and then we are transparent. Like what is not working, what is not. If the car has been reconditioned, what has been done, and it's essentially reconditioned to look and feel like a new car, right? I think that's what it is. Then also we recently set up the data center of excellence as well. I think it's just to empower the business to make a lot of right decision-making process, what vehicles do the customers essentially look for. It also supports the strategic decision. And I think it also helps both consumers to understand how pricing works better, right? What's available in the market and are you getting a good deal? And not forgetting automating a lot of the process flows and workflows, right? So, if I round it up, integrated e-commerce platform in Southeast Asia, right? And going back to that trust, transparent, and using technology to disrupt the car buying and selling experience. I know it's a short. Yeah.
No. I think that was a very comprehensive answer, and I love the fact that you've basically addressed a lot of the pain points in the previous way we've done work in the industry before, and it's very apparent and very clear, that the decisions made for the company in terms of what it's going to be offering is based on those pain points. I'm just wondering, was there anything, what was the push point? Was there something that happened? And I'm not entirely sure if there is an answer for this or if you can answer this, but was there a pain point that really pushed the founders of the company to say, you know what, this is going to happen right now? Was there a particular point in time that needed the disruption to happen?
Well, I think it was more going back to the aspects of trust, transparency, right? I think the consumers, essentially the customers today, they are looking for peace of mind when they're buying a car, right? And being a very decentralized market, I think the accessibility to information was not readily available across the platform, right? So I think that was the transforming factor. And I think the ease of transacting, moving away from a general 7, 8, 9, 10 days to coming to the point of 24 hours, or probably even shorter than that. And then, the overall frictions, that the entire friction of the journey, right? I think how do you kind of ease that through? And I think that was the decision turning point. And I think that together with the overall market adoption, I think that kind of transformed things through.
Right. Okay. So would you say that now that, Carsome has been in operation for a while now, and like I said, you have disrupted and you have reshaped the way the transactions are done, would you say that the industry in general, or the marketplace in general for used car markets, is now, figuratively speaking, a better world, a better place that we are in right now?
Sure. So I would still think it's a big journey, right? I think to head towards being a better place. I think we've transformed it quite significantly by having the promise factor of Carsome Promise. So going back to that, the warranty availability, which generally does not come with used cars. The direct upfront price, there's no hidden cost, and of course the money back guarantee, right? There's always this fear factor of, if I buy a car, is it going to be good enough? The trust is actually thrown into it, right? And the overall journey, I think, removing that the frictions, and I think the overall transparency that's provided over the traditional methods, I think using the usual ways of how we were doing 10 years ago, I think that would, in my opinion, be a better place, right?
Right. Okay. Now let's excuse me. Let's consider a little bit the product offerings that Carsome has right now. In terms of the users of the website, the people who are actually transacting. Of course, you've got the regular Joes, the you and I's of the world, who is actually thinking about getting a car or also disposing the cars that we have right now. But also you've got the I wouldn't say the middleman, but then the used car agencies who are probably also using the services. Now, how has their reception been towards the services that you've offered?
Sure. So as part of the used car dealers, I think we complement the overall journey. So as part of the overall service offerings, the dealers have an access to the vast amount of the cars that are being sold to the Carsome platform. So they're allowed to bid, and I think it allows. And I think what we also disrupt is the overall interstate borders as well. So you can kind of buy cars that are not within the respective of Kuala Lumpur versus Kedah versus Perlis versus Sabah. I think how do you transcend that across the various states? And I think also giving them the exposure of technology in terms of how do you use better data, the right purchase decisions versus the cars that you essentially want to buy, right? So that's the journey we're looking at to enable. I don't think we're here to essentially be competition to the used car dealers. It's more towards enabling them and working together as a co-working ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. So, when you've mentioned journey, it made me think about the actual user journey itself. So let's say a person has a car that they want to sell, for example, and I'm talking from an individual perspective. So I put the car up on site, and then I can take it to an inspection center, correct?
Yeah. Yes,
take us through
right.
take us through the process, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. So you take it to the inspection center, and you pretty much would go through the inspection journey where you have the car's inspected through the various touch points. We use a lot of data points to identify whether there's been prior to it accidents or the insurance anomalies and whatever not. Then post that, an offer is essentially made to the consumer in terms of what we could make a purchase right now. If the consumer is agreeing to it, the transaction completes there with the overall journey of the transfers. If not, the customer could choose to place the car in the bidding platform with a threshold set value, where it goes into the bidding systems where the dealers could pretty much bid, right? So once the bid has been made, again, the customer is given the ultimatum choice in terms of accepting the bid and then completing the transaction from there. So that's essentially the journey for the sell side of the story. And buying, it's essentially how you would regularly transact as well, where you go to the website, you indent the car that you would like to purchase, and likewise you'll get an appointment to view the car. We also have self-test drives at home where you could essentially have the car delivered to your house and you test drive the car and essentially complete the transaction therefore as well. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to compare this now to my own personal experience of buying a car when I was living in the UK. Now, one of the things that attracted me the most about the process of buying a car in the UK is that I can actually, and this is not just about buying cars, but also about buying parts and all the necessities that comes along with the car. I can put in the registration number of the car I'm intending to buy, and all the data is already in there. And then I can go ahead and take one step further and purchase a report that gives me a full vehicle history of that car. Just to double check, we are not at that stage just yet here in Malaysia, right?
No, I think within the region, I think with the exception of Singapore, of course, a central database of car vehicle, records are not there. I think it's a good problem statement to work on, but within the Carsome ecosystem itself, I think we've got a rich amount of data, and especially if the cars has been transacted within our platform, we're able to kind of give you the trust factor.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, let's talk about strategy here. In what you've mentioned just now, the products that were rolled out by Carsome came in stages. You've got the inspection service first that came out first, and then later on you introduce new things, until we arrive where it's a total end-to-end totality in system there, where you can go from thinking to actually making the purchase and securing the deal right on the platform, right? I'm trying to use this as an example for a lot of the SME owners right now who's thinking about, how does this knowledge apply to my business? If you've got an end-to-end product offering like what Carsome has right now, do you think that you would have, if given the chance to do it again, this entire thing, would you maintain the same strategy and introduce the products one at a time and do a staggered rollout? Or do you think you would have done the entire process all in one go if you had everything ready from the get-go?
Sure. So I strongly believe that, so from a perspective, we definitely did roll out platforms as staggered, as you said. So the approach was, addressing pain points in the used car market. Right now, if I were to start the journey back again, I would have done the similar journey. Of course, it's always the benefit of the doubt, knowing what happens in the future. However, the aspects of getting trust from the customers is absolutely most important. So I think from the consumer's perspective, how do you give that e-commerce journey, that digitization of this is what the report looks like when an inspection is done, right? Followed by from the used car dealers. How do you digitize the supply chain, the inventory acquisition, and then not forgetting from the operations team itself, like the digitalization of the supply chain. How do you integrate it with finance? So it's a journey, and I think overall, and as you rightly know this, it's a heavily offline business. How transforming it to a very online-based business is going to be transformative as steps by step, and of course getting trust and adoption by the consumers themselves, right? Hey, I can now buy a car online. So that journey would have been, I would have taken the same path, because it's a journey to build trust, earn trust, being the whole journey through. That's at least how I would have thought.
I mean, let's face it, Vishnu, is there anything that you can't do online right now? By being able to buy a car is the most natural thing to happen in this day and age. Next thing you know, you'll buy a house, or you'll be able to map out your entire life online. As we step into the future. I'm going to take a moment here to just pause for a second and remind our attendees that if they do have questions, to please go ahead and ask those questions, and park your questions in the chat box provided or through the Q&A function, and we will try to attempt to get to those questions a bit later on before we wrap up this session. So kalau anda ada sebarang soalan, please tanya soalan anda di chat box ataupun melalui function Q&A, dan kami akan cuba untuk menjawab, ataupun bukan saya lah menjawab, saya akan meminta Vishnu untuk menjawab soalan-soalan anda kemudian sebelum kita wrap up session ini. Okay. Now let's look at let's throw some spanners in the works here. I wanna try to think ahead here. Yeah. When I sent you the question, I thought about keeping up with the Jonases, quite literally, because technology it just moves so fast, and as technology moves really really quickly, we also see consumer behaviors also changing very rapidly, especially as we move from this generation to the Gen Z of the future, right? So there's a lot that are changing in the way we are looking at things happening here. A good example will be the mobile phone. A mobile phone where we would spend a lot of money on a mobile phone, but we would imagine that we would keep that mobile phone for a very long time. Versus now, a lot of the telcos are offering a 2-year buyout program, or you pay a lesser amount, you spend that money for 2 years, but at the end of the 2-year contract, you will either have the option of paying a lump sum, which is not a little bit, it's quite a significant amount of the actual ticket price of the phone, and take the phone away with you, or you can then convert your contract to the next best model up. Yeah? So it's an experiential economy that we're living in right now. The younger generation do not necessarily believe in the value of owning things, but rather experiencing things. Do you think this is something that Carsome would probably play a role in facilitating for us?
Sure. So I think, so from a Carsome perspective, I think what we're doing is we're primarily leveraging on data and technology. I think what we're trying to do is not forgetting the aspects of how, I think from the perspective of a consumer, it's always going to be, I want to buy something and I want to get it now. That aspects of this thing, also the overall, quality, the journey, right? So I think how do you give that solution back to the consumer? That's number one. Innovative and convenient solutions. I think what we've recently done was introduce a mobile app, right? So I think we are looking at ways, and I think this was also a question for me, like, buying a car using a mobile app, would people actually adopt to it? And I think that overall journey in terms of, being able to look for a car and then eventually potentially even maintaining the car within the ecosystem, having, we've spoken about this, we have actually spoken about this in previous events as well, where, how do you integrate it with the insurances, the road taxes, the warranty ecosystem and all that. So giving you the 360 view, right? So you don't want to have records of papers. You don't want to have, is my car coming up for a service and stuff like that. It's all kept within the mobile app. And end of the day, who knows? We could probably be in that same ecosystem as what, mobile phones and some new car providers are, where, you do, subscription or stuff like that. But we're not there. I don't think we'll probably be in the near future. But those are definitely items to think about as I think the consumer mindset changes as we go. So I think that's where the overall aspects of data and technology plays in terms of understanding what the consumer wants and transforming as we kind of grow.
Now that you've mentioned data and analytics, perhaps if you do have that information handy right now with you, you could tell us what are the current trends in the way people are consuming their cars. What are the cars, how often does the same car come back into the market, for example, if you sort of like have an understanding of that? And also, what are the kinds of cars that are selling well?
Sure. I think, in terms of the cars coming back in the ecosystem, I'm sorry, I don't have that information on the tip of my fingers. But I think in terms of the cars that are being transacted quite a bit, I think it varies different between the various, the consumer market. I think if you and I have a conversation after this, it's going to be a completely different segment of cars that we're looking at. and versus, and I think we definitely want to see how we could enable a parent who's trying to look at sending children to school versus a commuter to work, and understanding the different customer journeys and identifying that perspective of a way, right? So that's where I think we're looking at in terms of enabling the purchase decision-making capacity.
Right. I mean, I remember when I was going to buy my first car 15 years ago, I was very, very clear. I didn't want to go with any vanilla run-of-the-mill car. I needed my car to be red, 2 doors, and Italian, and I cannot afford a Ferrari on my starter salary, right? But it was, the digital world allowed me to do my research properly. The difference is now that, today when a person buys a car, there's a very high chance that the buyer would know a lot more about a particular car, as compared to the seller, because all the research would have already been done, and they are going in with knowledge. So it's a very informed decision that they're making. So in terms, and in that sense, a lot of businesses, it doesn't matter if it's cars or clothes or food, whatever, when they're selling their products or when they're putting their services out there, it's not necessarily a straightforward, here's my service. Instead, when they're marketing it, they are injecting a lot of the lifestyle that goes into it in the communication itself. So for example, you don't sell a car based on the fact that it's so fast, it'll take you from point A to point B. But you sell a car based on the fact that it's so fast, people are going to think you are so cool driving a very fast car, right? So content marketing is super important as well. So for Carsome, I know that you guys also produce your own content. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about, that part of the initiative where you're actually adding fuel, pun intended, to the fire when it comes to the buying and selling of cars that way.
Sure. So I think from a marketing and advertising perspective, I think where we are doing a lot more effort, and again, I like I said, we are a different segment of customers, in terms of car ownership. But I think that the majority of the population, I think, would not know what needs to be checked within a car before they transact between hands. Understand what has been replaced versus not. And I think no matter how much you kind of do research online, there's a big population of customers that I don't know, they would not probably understand what does this mean, right? So I think the focus of Carsome, I think in terms of branding, marketing awareness, is primarily based around how we do the overall inspection journey, the trust factor, the transparency in terms of information, and all details around that. Because at the end of the day, if you do not trust information that you're getting, then it defeats the purpose of actually owning the car from a respective organization, right? So I think that's where we are, and that's where the technology focus has been in terms of how do you more accurately and can we go from a 175 to potentially more, giving that vast access data within the car. And likely, like you said, right, making the purchase at home and getting it delivered at your house with knowing that it's exactly what it is.
Now, Vishnu, you've mentioned trust factor at least twice in our chat right now, right? And clearly, that's a super important element in the business that you're in, because if you don't have trust, then people won't buy the cars, and you are in the business of helping people sell their cars. And it's not like it comes, trust doesn't necessarily come on a piece of paper in a certificate, right? As compared to us in Astro AWANI, we've got the research companies actually doing this stuff for us. Hence why we can walk away with the title of Malaysia's most trusted news brand, for several years running. But what's the equivalent for you? Do you actually have a placard on the wall that says, "Hey, we are the most trusted, trust us"? What do you do to contribute to this trust building process?
Sure. Well, I think for us, it's more on the vast access of information that the consumer gets. And again, we don't have a plaque kind of indicating that, though. I think all of the Carsome employees put their chest up and kind of speak about it. But I think it's the overall access of information that is given. I think that's where the trust factor is, right? And likewise, the Carsome promise, the trust factors that come back in terms of, here you go. If you're not satisfied, come back to us, right? I think that approach of how things are being done. And I think that speaks a lot from how things are being done.
I think there's a little bit of an audio interruption I can hear over here, but it's okay. I hope it's not too distracting for our attendees. Okay, so now I wanna understand a little bit about, let's share some knowledge over here in terms of. I mentioned that you've got clearly Carsome has got a very well written strategy because we can see that the product rollout is done in a staggered way. So you've got an entire book of play to choose from. Now, if I were to ask you, for the attendees that we have today, they are mostly business owners and people from the SME community. If there was a page from your book of play that you think would be super useful for SMEs to rip from, which page would that be? What would that lesson be?
Let's see. Something that I've always lived through is being extremely customer focused. You have to understand your customers, not necessarily what you want is what customers want. I think that's the most important thing to stand by, and then relatively everything else kind of falls into place, right? Today where we are, I think a lot of businesses need to accept the digital wave. And fortunately, even for Carsome, COVID-19 was an accelerator, right? I think the transformation of needing to go online has been there. And I think the adoption of technology has been extremely high. And that showcases across the various businesses that and your day-to-day, I now fail to realize how many times in the last month or two that I've actually transacted in cash, right? I think that showcases even going to mama restaurants and whatnot. So, and then I think is also all about understanding your customers. I think all goes back in terms of leveraging data and technology, because you need to know how to increase efficiency, because you can only grow so much with people. I think adopting data and technology definitely helps in terms of understanding your customers better, growing your business and increasing efficiency. Then I think just be constantly hungry, right? I think what today, it's obsolete tomorrow. So I think constantly seek knowledge to expand and digitize the business, because keeping up in terms of what's being done in different sides of the world, understanding the consumers better, what works in Malaysia versus potentially Indonesia could be very different as well. So it's always good to understand what essentially the consumers want. And I think not forgetting at the last bit of it, right? I think is always having fun along the way. I think being innovative, being creative, and creating meaningful solutions, because at the end of the day, you need to enjoy what you do. So constantly adopting, I go back again, and creating meaningful solutions, how it ended with in terms of my thought process in terms of strategizing.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the COVID-19 is an accelerator. A lot of people, whilst it may be true, yes, it has accelerated our process, especially of adopting technology into our businesses, into our lives. That's definitely true. Only earlier today, I was talking to Mr. Danny Chua, the Chief Operating Officer of Touch 'n Go e-wallet, and we were saying now the older generation, for the lack of a better way of saying it, the boomers, it's quite a derogatory term in today's TikTok world. The boomers are now really, really taking up technology because you know what? They have to do this. They have to Sejahtera their way everywhere, right? So this is an acceleration. But for Carsome, if I could ask, in terms of technology, what do you think that was put in the back burner before was accelerated right to the front thanks to COVID-19?
So for us, I think we were right at the right time. I think so. We had a relatively enabled system for the digital journey. I think what we needed to kind of bring forward was the implementation of the delivery to your home, the logistics network, and things like that were brought up front. But I think from a technology perspective, that was it was relatively there. I think the only thing that we brought forward extremely fast was the consumer app, which enabled you to kind of have that e-commerce journey on your car purchase decision. But otherwise, I think I don't want to be kind of saying like we were there already ready for COVID, but I think the building blocks towards being a digital enabled company was already there, and I think it was just more towards the operational journey of enabling that last miles and digitizing those journeys to ensure that you're getting more visibility there.
Was there anything actually new that was introduced during COVID-19?
So it was the consumer app that was our Carsome app that was launched during the pandemic. And I think a lot of them were...
The app itself was launched during the pandemic. For some reason, I thought the app has been around for a while. Or perhaps I'm a hardcore browser user, perhaps.
Yeah, so the app was just recently launched somewhere early last year. Mid last year, I think somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, and what changed in terms of your user base the moment you release the app? Because as we know, when you release an app users are completely different animals as compared to the web users, because app users are the converted. So you don't have to sing to the choir, they are the choir already, right? So what changed?
So the change was more towards understanding the consumer better. I think it's knowing what they want from a data perspective, knowing what our inventory is able to serve the right customer, and of course having that ability to register your interests, and for us to either enrich our inventory to support the requirement of the consumer. So that's essentially changed. We are actually definitely looking to enhance that journey to have that 360 ownership, where adding the ancillaries of insurance, warranty, payment of your car loans and things like that.
Okay, all right. Now, if we take another step forward and we start looking into the future, not so distant future now, because we've been hearing about 5G and all this and all that happening in this country very, very soon. In fact, if we compare ourselves to our friends in Europe, for example, or in the US, 5G is already very much part of their lives. So it's not just about 5G, but it's also about the advancements that are brought forward by IR 4.0. And then you've got stuff like, NFC, and all these bells and whistles that comes along with a digitalized marketplace, how that is being relooked into. Do you think that, I'm going to ask you, what do you think is in store for Carsome, given all this? I'm sort of like hoping you're saying that, oh, now you can research, look at a car, purchase it online, then literally take your phone to the car that you're buying, tap it on, and Bob's your uncle, you can open the door and start driving. Or, maybe not that far out, but, perhaps you could give us a heads up of what's coming up.
Sure. No, the focus would be, I think, at the existing journeys that we currently have, how do we further digitize it, right? There's still some offline touch points. That's where we're currently putting efforts on in terms of digitizing. And though I would love to have that aspects of going and buying a car, picking it up, using a phone, but I think we are probably not there yet over the near future. But I'm not discounting it for the fact of us experimenting and researching around it. So the focus would be a lot more in terms of better or hyper-personalized buying and selling, right? I think that's how we would focus on quite a bit. And I think focusing a lot more on the mobile journey as more consumers are shifting towards that, right? And rightly, the 5Gs and the ability to kind of access data, consume data, potentially augmented reality, right? Seeing the cars a lot more better would be something that we'll be focusing on. And I think that's where the most effort would be around. And I think more towards, we might also be looking at, car health checks, cars are getting more digital nowadays. How do we kind of bring that into you as a consumer? How do you manage your warranty process? And then I think giving you, again, I keep going back to this, but the data points in terms of having the person who does not understand the car a lot better, right amount of data in terms of picking the right insurance, ensuring that you're servicing your car right on time, and the ability to kind of actually transact that between our system, and then potentially getting a better value from that as well, right? So that's what I would potentially think of. But 5G, IR 4.0, I think infrastructure, I think the availability of access of data. I think today we have a 10 gig network, tomorrow 100 gig. It's still never going to be enough. I think it's the ability to kind of consume a lot more data. So I think giving that ability to fast anywhere, anytime, that's where we're looking at. And I think would be the overall digitizing, right? How can I remove that paper from you? How can I reduce it from 5 days to 3 or 4 days? And how can I, thinking out loud, like, can I do your thumbprints, ownership transfers and stuff like that? So that's where we're looking at in terms of the overall operational journey.
I was just thinking, listening to what you were saying just now, and then you mentioned the word insurance. It got me very quickly thinking about all the peripherals that comes with car ownership. So it's stuff like that. It's the insurance, and also I think a huge gap in the market that I am so hoping somebody would plug very, very soon is in the after sales or parts market. I hate the idea of thinking, the idea of needing to get a part and getting ripped off for it, or needing or sending a car. I might like a car because the most important thing about the car ownership journey in Malaysia, especially if we're thinking about some niche cars, the kinds of cars that I would like to drive on a Sunday, for example, is that you really got to know the people, the right people to take care of it, right? So you've done a fantastic job in the buying and selling of cars in Malaysia. Do you think that, if one were to say, hey, Carsome, can you please do something with regards to the buying and selling of parts, of aftermarket parts, for example, is this something that falls within the I'm not saying right now immediately, but do you think you might have the technology to take this on if the card was played to your hand?
I'm not. We are not looking at it at this point of time, but I'm not discounting the fact that we could potentially, look at something in similar in the future. But for the current focus, I think the focus is more towards the buy-sell journey and the overall 360 ownership. And what comes with it, we could potentially work with partners or respective industry experts to kind of bring that ecosystem together. So I think it's all about I think we're going back to the playbook, right? I think it's how you strategize with industry partners and kind of bring that ecosystem together. So not discounting the fact, but I think immediately within our priorities, it's not there yet.
So guys, he didn't say no, yeah? Bear that in mind. He did not say no, that's not something Constant's not going to do. He's not discounting it. So we'll just take that as a 1/5 part yes in that respect. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions that has come in, Vishnu. So I'm going to go ahead and try to answer those questions here. There is one question, a very simple and straightforward question, coming from Nurul. Can I pay for my car on your website?
Sure. So at the moment, you are able to pay your booking fees online. The rest of the transactions are being done offline. We are working towards being able to pay online. So at the moment, it's just the booking deposits, but in the future, we are working towards being fully digital payment online. Right.
Now, do you mean, when you say that, do you mean actually the full payment as in from the buyer, or does that include the third party inclusion of, banks and stuff like that as well?
So we have a banking arm, which is Carsome Capital. So we would be able to enable the payments within the respective, our sister company in terms of Carsome Capital. With banks, there are integrations already available, and I think banks have also gone a lot more digital. So we would definitely be looking at that as well.
Okay. All right. Next question is a little bit on the technical side. How many active users of Carsome apps monthly, if you can divulge that?
I don't think I could give that off the bat right now, but
No,
but I would easily say we are progressively growing. Yes.
Right. Okay. Somebody is also asking the same question. Can I pay for the car website with Carsome? Is the inspection free?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so and all that. The follow-up question is how, but I'm guessing for that is basically literally just go ahead and follow the processes on the website, correct?
So if you go to Carsome.my today, like being in Malaysia, there is a new seller journey that we've kind of introduced where you input, and with the selected, the broader ranges of cars, you input the right amount of, the right data, like in terms of vehicle model, variant, and then followed by mileage points and the year of the car. You will automatically be given what is the average threshold of the car price would be, and then you could follow through with an appointment where you could get yourself scheduled up and get the car checked and whatnot. So that's how we're trying to move towards being more digital in giving you the price upfront, being transparent about it, and so forth.
Okay. Interesting question here. So listening to what you're saying just now, I think a lot of the processes within the Carsome business is proprietary. But Josephine Wong is asking, can I be part of the inspection workshop center? Wow. Somebody's interested in taking on the inspection duties for you.
I don't have an answer for you, Josephine, but reach out to me. I could probably check internally, come back to you.
Okay, Josephine, you want to reach out to Vishnu then. Next question is coming from Mark. What does Carsome offer to business owners or business buyers? Interesting.
Let's see. Not something that I can think off the bat at the moment. I don't think we have a business or a corporate buying segment at this point of time, but I believe that's something that we could, it is a good question, and I think I could take it back internally to potentially explore. Thank you.
Okay. Great. All right. Okay. So I think that's all the questions that we have so far. So we're going to wrap up this session right now. It's a little bit early, but it's all right. I think we've covered a lot of ground into this discussion because we've been talking rapidly and we've covered every single thing from, how the business came about to the product offerings. So I think it's a very, very impactful session. We want to say a very big thank you to Vishnu. But before you leave, I have to ask a car guy question. For somebody who works in the car industry, what's your poison? What's the, well, when I say poison, what's your whip? What is the car? You either have to answer with the car that you currently have and super happy with, or what is the car that you want to have and will be super happy with? Sure.
So, the dream would be having a 911, a Porsche 911 Turbo S, but at the moment, I drive a pretty old car, and I know you're a BMW guy. You had a E30, right, down the road, I believe. Oh wow! You've gone down that far. I have an old 19-year-old BMW Z4. 19-year-old, which one? An E46? BMW Z4, the E85. Z4, yeah. Nice one. Okay, so you and I, we both have that in common. We like our cars to have the option of going about without a roof, because I also have how many years old? A 15-year-old Mini Cooper S convertible manual. We need to grab coffee one of the days. All right, Vishnu, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And please say our very big thank you to the folks at Carsome. We love what you guys are doing. Please go ahead and do more disruption. We hate dealing with, the messy middleman at the used car centers that's, giving me rip-off prices whenever we're trying to sell our cars. So thank you for the service that you're doing to the community, because you're helping people to transact with ease, and we wish you the very best of luck in the future. Vishnu, thank you so much for joining us here at Reboot Now 2022. Thank you, Dino.